All right. We are excited for everybody to be here. We're going to give everyone just a few more minutes to jump in, and then we will get started. We have two great presenters today, in Frost and in Daryl. We're going to be talking about addressable video. And just as a housekeeping note, for anybody, if you have questions, you can type in the questions. We'll be taking them throughout the session today. They'll be on the right-hand side under the question mark. Feel free to type those in, and we will address them as they come up. We're due for a 45-minute flight today, and it looks like clear skies and smooth sailing. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride with us. And we're happy to have everybody here. We have, as way of announcement here, so Frost comes to us from Simplify. We're very excited to have him join us and talking about addressable video. He's a serial entrepreneur, having started 4 separate companies recently, and his most recent company, Personify, was sold back in 2008 to Collective Media. If everybody remembers Collective Media, I do, for sure. With 15 plus years experience in digital ads, one of the great things that he's going to be bringing today is kind of his experience on the digital ad side, but also the agency perspective. And fun fact, he was just recently awarded the top SaaS CEO of 2020. That was just announced today, so congratulations, Frost, on that award. We always like to give credit where credit is due. And with really, your career built behind the computer, you still have found time for your wife and 3 kids, 2 dogs, and a blind cat who apparently is still part of the addressable video audience, which I'm still trying to figure out. But he loves skiing and surfing, although in Fort Worth, I'm not exactly sure how good the surf is. I prefer California surf, but we'll try to figure that one out as we go along here. Simplify, for those of you who are new to this or are finding out, is the leader in programmatic advertising. And one of the key things that they have focused on is really the precision and deliverability of those to highly targeted audiences on a localized basis. So taking the power of video and the power of audience creation and combining those two at scale with CTV, addressable audience, mobile advertising, etc. Really the entire gambit to give people the highest and best return on their campaigns as possible. So Frost, thank you so much for being here today. The second introduction we have is for Mr. McNutt. Daryl is, has a deep legacy in the digital space. And if anybody knows Daryl, you've seen him on various webinars and seminars and thought leadership pieces, etc. But his experience started on the digital data side, data analysis from his time at Comscore. And he really built on that and leveraged the ability to do that deep dive analysis and brought that forward into all different kinds of digital advertising. He's been on the front lines of this for a variety of different companies, including Specific Media back in the day, Brightroll, Drawbridge, all these guys who are deep players on the digital side, but also the video side. So he's bringing that experience to us today to talk about addressable video. As a Wisconsin native, he takes full advantage of the outdoors, as you can well imagine. As a runner and a biker, cross-country skier, he's been on the competitive circuit for triathlons and has performed very well in Ironman events. No surfing yet in Wisconsin, but I think we'll get Frost and Daryl out to California here, and we'll give them surfing yet. That is the quick introductions. Again, thank you so much for joining. If you're still with us, or there's questions in the right-hand side. You can add questions in as we go, and we will go ahead and jump into it. One of the key aspects here is really understanding what is it that we're talking about today. There's a lot of different terms out there, and as you can see here, we have advanced TV, connected TV, all these different terminologies, and I want to give kind of a quick second briefing on it. So advanced TV, as we're using, it's really an umbrella term. It talks about streaming content, connected TV. It's really the overarching term, advanced TV, where you can kind of get your video where you want it. Connected TV are ads that are served over the top, right? It's smart TV apps, it's gaming consoles, it's those kind of things that bring that video experience to you in new and different ways. TV everywhere, that term is really focused where there's a login required. you're familiar with this as streaming devices, right? Or streaming apps, where you can get your TV on any device, anywhere, wherever you may happen to be, whether it's at home, whether it's on the go, whether, anywhere you are. And all the big players in that space. But any kind of time you have to log in with a password, that's really kind of what we're talking about on the TV everywhere side. Video on demand, really this is through your cable or satellite providers. It's when you watch something that's been previously viewed. Different from DVR, this is something that's actually downloaded to your set-top box that you can view repeatedly. Programmatic is buying linear TV ads and serving them out during the TV, targeting a specific audience that's coming through on that. So there's our quick and dirty definitions for you guys on kind of what we're talking about here. Why are we talking about video, right? Why are we talking about programmatic? And the reason is that more and more people are flocking to this. And as we're in the COVID lockdown, and it looks like that's going to continue, we've seen a huge surge in online video play through all the different platforms, whether it be through TV everywhere with a massive rise in Netflix or HBO or all these other streaming services, Hulu, etc. Or whether it be multi-device, right? People looking at different things in different ways, not so much sitting in front of the TV because that gets old and boring, but walking around and sitting in different places of the house, watching on different devices. So we've got 165 million users on connected TVs, and that number is just continuing to grow as the technology pushes out more and more smart TVs into homes across the country. 40% of people are using multiple devices to stream their content. And that's up from just a few years ago when that was down at 20%. So we're seeing multiple people on multiple devices capturing their content everywhere they want to be and everywhere they're going. And with the advent of 5G, we're just going to see that number jump up significantly. The easier it is to stream the video, the more adoption is going to be. And that's really what we're talking about here. There's a high level of penetration. And the last part about it is the money. Everybody's following the money, right? The money is switching over from traditional linear TV into the programmatic TV, the digital TV side. We're expecting the trend to continue on that as we're looking at over $4.5 billion in ad spend in programmatic TV. So there's a lot of money there. There's a lot of eyeballs there. That's where everybody is moving to. And that's really the foundation for what we're talking about here today. So with that brief intro, I think we're going to jump in and start talking about the trends in the space. And Frost, from your perspective, given kind of the background that we just walked through, what are some of the trends that you're seeing most when you're talking to your clients, and as you guys are building out the programmatic side of it? Can you give us some high level trends you're looking at?
Sure, Kevin, and thanks. Glad to be on with you guys. So, I mean, it's been a crazy year, as you might guess, in the world of advertising. And so things were going swimmingly till about mid-March. And then, as you know, all hell broke loose as people started going into lockdowns, and advertisers started shifting budgets and moving them around. And so, I mean, one of the interesting things to us has been that through all that, I mean, in the little piece of the world we see, our video business is up year over year, still like 50%. And our CTV business is up year over year about 100%. So it is, so this is a growing market. It's sort of fascinating to me that pre-roll video has been around, but I think it's getting some of the, it's getting sort of a halo effect of people saying, hey, we're going to come and we understand advertisers, we understand our viewers are moving to CTV. We understand and I know we'll talk about targetability and some of the attribution, but I think they have the video assets and they're putting them to use both on CTV as well as the video side.
Are you seeing an increased level in consumer patience for pre-roll video?
Well, we don't have a great measure of consumer patience unless we talk to our own family or so. But so I can't really comment on that. But interestingly enough, we are seeing buyers, advertisers, both on the performance side, coming to both CTV and video, which in the past it hasn't been I think in the past many of the performance guys have really focused on lower cost media, and we're seeing performance advertisers really being able to drive conversions and foot traffic with video, both video and CTV.
That's great. One thing that I've noticed too is that it looks like the pre-roll, they're shrinking it down. It used to be 30 seconds and then it was 15 seconds. And we're now even seeing shorter little snippets. Geico is famous for trying out just about everything under the planet.
Right.
And they're doing 5-second pre-rolls, right? You basically get the name Geico and that's it. Boom, it's gone. But it is video and it is engaging, and it's a different medium that they're using to get their name out there. So that's something interesting to watch also, is the different formats.
Yeah, I think when you have to sit through a 30-second video to watch a minute or minute and a half news clip, I think people figured out that is pretty annoying, especially if you're trying to watch two together. So I think Geico's absolutely on the right track to make sure the length of the ad doesn't overwhelm the length of the actual content.
Right. Daryl, what, from your perspective, what are you seeing in terms of programmatic TV and the changes in the marketplace?
Well, it's been interesting because, like, I was just reading the other day, there was a big jump when we all had to be in lockdown. The viewer audience and watching and time spent with video jumped significantly, as you can imagine. But what's happened now is it actually has gone back to pre-COVID, or within 3 to 5% of viewership and time. So we're getting back to, good news is we're getting back to our old habits. But I'm going to come from the research side of this and the analytics side. And I remember back to the old days, 2010, which, used to, in analytics world, the Nielsen's of the old days and things, and television, like they had 70, 80 years and models that didn't change. Back then, we had 15, 30-second, minute-long videos. Everybody was figuring it out. And I remember working with a CPG company that sells Pringles, and not to name them. But
I love Pringles.
I know, so did I. But when we went there and we started looking at the video, and we're still learning about, like, it's interesting you brought up the exchange for content. Back then, you didn't, it was 15, 30 second, and then, long form is what we just called everything over a minute. And now we do have all this, these different sizes from 6 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, where you can have a fair trade of this commercial, this pre-roll, for the amount of content I'm getting. I think then the challenge becomes, and this is the really where I, weird research guy, where I get excited, is we couldn't blend those. We couldn't blend that data. And with that company, you had a Hulu over here. You might have 3 programmatic platforms. You had their direct buys. Everybody was on I can tell you, was on a different platform. And now the IAB has put in standards now that we all have to be on the same plane. But now you can blend that and start to build those attribution and those media mix models that really do tell you, from CTV to TV everywhere to programmatic, where should I and when should I put my dollars and what devices. CTV is deterministic. The video on demand, deterministic, but then you get to programmatic, you're still going to be probabilistic, but the machine learning, the AI now is way beyond where it was even we were working on back then. And that's where it makes addressable, so much easier to use in programmatic. And even better is you can do some of that, A/B testing or multivariate testing, so that you can see what content works when and with which audience.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It actually is a nice segue into our next topic, is really the addressable audience. So when we're talking about addressable audience, and maybe Daryl, you can pick up on this one as we get into it. What is your definition of addressable audience, and how is that really relevant as we move into the digital space?
I think with the addressable audience, there's privacy rules out there. We all want to be protective. Every good company out there is doing everything they can to protect privacy. You're not going to be able, obviously, if you're in Netflix or somebody where someone's going to log into a device and you have permission, but that's only, I don't think anyone has more than 50% of the total audience out there. So that leaves a huge group of folks out there where you want to reach them, and you want to reach them in a way that protects privacy, but also delivers advertising that makes sense to them for products they want, along with the content, so that you're not having a disparity between an ad and the type of content and things like that. So with addressable, I actually wasn't a big fan. We always like talk bad about it because that's where digital against linear. Now that's all changed, and now you have all these linear people coming in, and you want to speak in the same language. And I think actually Frost is probably better qualified to talk about what's happening with that, because one of the things I want to ask him about, just because I'm curious, is like what's happening with the GRP, and how are people now that a lot of linear is being data driven is how we look at that. How are these folks now dealing with that when they're doing their ad buys?
Yeah, Frost, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I didn't know if that was a question.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, one of the things you didn't define was addressable, because you can argue all programmatic is addressable at one level, but in the TV sense, addressable because of the set-top box, the MVPDs, we think of addressable as household addressable, right? Is addressable at the household level. And you had interesting the stat somewhere. Recently we've seen about, there are 126 million households in the U.S. or something along those lines. And the number that's important to us is how many of those are actually watching advertising supported video on demand, or AVOD, through what's the other acronym, FAST, right? And so numbers there are probably 60 or 70 million from what we can see. Are actually doing that. Now, some may be mostly watching Netflix and just a little bit of AVOD. Netflix, of course, has no ads. But that's sort of the number of households we think of in terms of our addressable universe from that side. Now, you asked me, but that may not answer your question.
Yeah, no, you
wanted to know.
Yeah, you're right. I did not answer addressable. Again, that's me just making it's a common term, but I guess with that, addressable is the use of GRPs from linear to, as a digital had tried to go at it their way, then television their way, and a lot of the models from linear television still work off a GRP to know, like, I spend increase 1% here, I can expect this many sales in store. So I was in my mind, like, how are you seeing buyers come to you? Are you seeing more linear buyers, or a mix of folks, and how they talk about their approach to buying addressable TV?
Yeah, and it's a huge mix, right? So on one hand, we have the digital buyers who've been buying digital programmatic video, and they're saying, hey, I can, I see really good video completion rates, a little higher CPM, but good results. They love the content of a full episode. And so you have digital buyers coming into the CTV space. And they're fantastic, but a lot of the big budgets are still in the linear buyers. And so the linear buyers are coming at it saying, well, hey, tell me what kind of GRP, what kind of cost per point, et cetera. And so we've got a lot of good calculators to figure out on what a budget should be in programmatic addressable to achieve certain GRPs. The reporting is still, I think, as a digital player, you go, well, are these guys just going to come on and get rid of GRP and just, we can show them our own sort of digital style conversion attribution. But I think most people in our space, including ourselves, are saying, well, this is the way they're used to buying. Let's talk in their terminology for these linear buyers with GRPs and cost per points, and make sure they're getting what they need, through what many of us think will be a transition period as we move to more digital type metrics in the future.
So as we work through that addressable audience, one of the concerns people have is how big is my audience, right? What is my reach? What is the scale of what I can do? Simplify has done a really good job of taking broad reach with hyper targeting. Can you just give us a little bit of how that addressable audience blends with the localization that you guys do, and bringing all that together?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and what's interesting about programmatic in general, it was this way, programmatic display, where, before people is the aggregation factor of programmatic, where in the past, in the display, people used to have to go to each website or a network. And so when you tap into the programmatic pipes, you see a ton of inventory. We saw that same thing in mobile, where all of a sudden programmatic as an aggregator. And we're seeing the same thing in programmatic, in connected TV and CTV, where we and others who are demand side platforms can plug into, I think it's a dozen different supply side platforms that we're plugged into to see inventory. So we're seeing a huge, 2 years ago, if you asked me that question, I'd like, yeah, scale is really a problem in CTV.
Right.
Today, the increase in CTV and really quality programming because of the networks can't sell all theirs directly. They're making a lot of great programming available on through the exchanges, through programmatic. And I think compared to, scale has always been an issue with the MVPD based addressable. There, as I said, I think we have about double the households. Most the largest MVPDs doing addressable are probably in the 30 million household level. But the other thing that people don't realize is they're, for the most part today, and now this is changing, linear based addressable is limited to the allotment that the cable companies get of about 2 minutes per hour. And I think you see Roku negotiated much bigger carriage agreements, like 30% of ad available. And we see, and so I think we see, it's hard to measure, but we see a lot more than 2 minutes per hour on some of these programs. And so I think not only do we have the reach, but we also have frequency that enables us to deliver at highly targeted campaigns at scale.
So now you're able to go out to companies that have traditionally not been able to leverage video and sell them on video, right? People who are localized, regionalized companies who can't do a national broadcast on NBC or CBS, and now they can come to you guys and get hyper targeted with video and get the kind of metrics that they're looking for. Is that right?
Yeah. So we have a lot of partners who are great partners of TapClicks as well. We have joint customers who have sales forces that sell to local businesses, right? Whether they're the local car dealer or a local retailer. And, we've seen lots of campaigns. I think the median, so half of the CTV campaigns we see are spending under $1,000 a month. So all of a sudden, TV ads, if they can afford the creative, right? And there are good ways to do that. All of a sudden, they can, the local, well, car dealers have been doing it for a while, but the local yoga shop can say, hey, I want to spend $1,000 targeting the people within a 4-mile radius who are apt to be a yoga customer doing that. But on the flip side, we're seeing literally $1 million a month CTV campaigns. And often those, the sort of trend we're seeing there is the localization of a larger nationwide campaign. We're doing we have a grocery store currently that has like 1,200 locations, and instead of doing one, or a campaign targeting the DMAs where they're active, they're doing 1,200 campaigns around each store, so they can personalize content with store location. They can adjust budgets, so you spend more budget in the big markets than the little markets, and they can see performance on each one. So it's really, in many ways, sort of democratizing, the TV spend.
That's really interesting, because that part of it seems like that was one of the biggest barriers early on, right? Getting the $1 million budget for CTV or for digital TV was really difficult to do. And not only are you doing that, then you're breaking that down into subsegments for deliverability and for targetability. That's really cool. So when we go out and run these video campaigns, what we're seeing and what we talked about earlier is that people aren't just sitting watching their TV, right? They're on multiple devices. They're doing all different kinds of things while they're actually sitting there watching TV. They've got their phones out. They're on Instagram. They're on Snapchat. They're on whatever. They're doing email on their computer, and they're watching TV at the same time. And Frost, maybe you can address this one. As you're looking at best practices when it comes to addressable video and video content, video delivery, let's talk a little bit more about cross-channelization of that and how we spread that message across to make sure we're getting multiple touch points and the effect that has on the overall campaigns. Is that something that you guys are pushing? Is that a strategy you're talking to your customers about? And maybe you can go into detail on that.
Yeah, we see many, and I don't know whether we're pushing it, but we see a lot of people already recognize it and see that. And I love the graphic that you have. It reminds me of me and multitasking a lot of ways. But but I think there are a couple of reasons. Kevin mentioned earlier the media mix modeling. So at one point, it's if you know, in the digital space, site retargeting has always been a super effective tactic. But to do site retargeting, you have to drive someone to your website, right?
Chicken and the egg, right?
So there's always upper funnel spending to get people to your website, and then the back to the chicken, the site retargeting was like the guy I used to work with used this phrase, like the rooster taking credit for the sun coming up in the morning, right? So so then you get them to the website, you hit them with site retargeting ad, and they convert. And so with CTV, it's kind of there's a sort of analogous where you show them the ad on the big screen, right? And that's sort of the branding and the impression in a full episode player. And then with less expensive ads, whether on a mobile or a desktop device, you can show the ads there. So there's that sort of same media mix thing where and the other really key thing and why people like to do an omni-channel campaign is the conversions, right? So you can also, while we can actually in our platform measure if you saw a big screen and then another device in that household converted, it's a very many cases you want to show the conversions off of the because you can't go up and click on your large screen TV, at least not on mine. But people are sitting there and can go to the website and convert on their desktop or their laptop or their mobile device.
Absolutely.
And adding to that, I think the word is interoperability. And when you're looking at cross-channel, because CTV, again, you got a lot of deterministic, but you also then have the probabilistic. And it goes back to, my days at one of my other companies where, we worked with Expedia. And what we found is people would be on their mobile device, checking for trips and researching, but almost 80% of those would then book on desktop. And knowing when and where and how they're using, so that customer journey is really important, because then you'd also have Facebook working in there. Obviously, you have Google and all its properties. You have all the big players, along with folks doing addressable TV. And so being able to blend that data consistently and standardize it, so then you can do the kind of media mix modeling and really build out what that customer journey is super important right now. And that's one of the advantages of democratization that's happening, is now we actually, people talk data everywhere. And one of my biggest things when someone tells me they have a ton of data is like, tell me a story. And I will tell you a good 90% of them can't tell me a story. But that's where now blending these pieces together, if there's so many tools out there that make it really easy to first standardize that data from all the different platforms, build it into a GRP that's a digital, to a linear GRP, which is television, and then now mixing in all your different channels as well as the different devices. It's pretty complex, but that's the cool thing right now in the age we're living, is there are so many tools that can do that for you. So then you can actually, you really get sophisticated. Then you can take that same analysis and go ahead and turn it back in using your DMP out to your DSPs you connect to and other properties to target against that and really get specific with your addressable TVs.
Yeah, we had a campaign recently. It was actually a convenience store chain, also a multi-hundred chain, and they ran CTV next to mobile display. And at the end of the day, they were measuring cost per visits to their convenience store. So at the end of the day, the overall CPV was very strong, but the mobile drove a lower, because of the lower cost of inventory. The mobile delivery drove a lower cost per visit than the CTV. Still I think they were both in the single digits, but still was better on that side. So so just an example of where they probably wouldn't have worked as well just separate, but together they work very well.
Yeah, that's great. And you guys are doing a great job of leading this conversation for me, because our next topic really gets into the reporting and the data analysis side of it. And Daryl, you so eloquently just put it that there's so many different things of blending data and how we can get that data pulled forward and view it and understand it. But again, at the same time, it can be overwhelming, right? There's so much data. There's so many input sources. Maybe give us a little bit of insight from your perspective on how the consolidation of resources and tools can help some of the advertisers out there and some of the agencies out there who are working with skeleton crews. These tools they're designed to give better visibility, but also give better efficiency. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, I think it's one of the things we always talk about here is build versus buy. And, when you're at the local level, you aren't going to have the resources. And I mean, again, a great time in MarTech right now is you don't have to, in many cases, build it yourself. A lot of us can use the standard reporting that's out there. I think the big part now is you take that first party data, so your customers' data, and you bring that in, and then you're able to attach the advertising data to it and really understanding and using the tools to analyze what is the important. Because we have feeds from Facebook that have over 200 different data points on it. That's just one channel out there.
Right.
You start adding all those in. And so really understanding your customer and there's many platforms that can do that for you. Ours is one of them. But then when it comes to attaching to these others, through an instant on connection, or you can bring them in through spreadsheets, doesn't matter. There's a whole bunch of different ways. And tying that to that customer data and really coming out with, I go back to that customer journey, where they, from the introduction to awareness to conversion, and then, keeping them happy so that you keep those customers. That's really where you need a tool that can holistically do that. And then, you want, like I said, you don't always have to build it yourself. That's expensive programming. You can get people that then focus on analysis and reporting and are delivering that to your marketing channels, and while your data is just being brought into one platform. And that's the biggest thing: first party, third party, and connecting that to all your different advertising channels, and also the devices, if you can bring that information in. So that's a very complex model, but if you get it right, then your efficiency with your spend goes way up, especially when you're able to, like, now go to that hyper targeting or geo targeting. You're delivering, not to be cliched, but the right message at the right time. So
yeah. Frost, you're dealing with customers, as you explained, right, that are all across the board, from $1,000 a month spend to $1 million plus spend. How do you guys deal with reporting for the broad spectrum that you're attacking from your client base?
Yeah, it's very different. As Kevin was saying, the needs of different size customers are very different, and in many cases, especially the larger customers who have bigger advertisers, who have bigger spend across broader channels, are ones that are super interested in aggregating and using. We also see a fair amount of third party like Moat and others for where they want to look at our reporting, they want to look at standardize across a third-party measurement company of some sort. But I think that, what I think about, especially with the world of TV here, is I've said before, it's like, hey, people will be attracted to it by the targeting, but I think they'll stay for the attribution, because the reporting level and the reporting level of being able to target, and figure out what exact, what ZIP+4 areas, or what specific demographics in those ZIP+4s, or what keywords drove conversions, or drove whatever action they were looking for on their CTV ads. I think there's just the amount of granular reporting and all the data that can be tied to that. Is super valuable, basically for not only, I think two things really, not only for driving more efficient advertising spend, but also to understand who's really buying your product and to advertise and further develop the product along those needs.
And that's the real allure of moving over from linear TV to digital TV, is the attribution models, the ability to see who's buying what and where they're doing those activities, what time of day they're doing the activities as well.
Yeah,
you can see all of that.
The two biggest things we see right now are the ability to, and we have a household level graph. So show an ad on a big screen, and then figure out what other devices in that household either went to your website and converted. So that ability to tie that together, and then also the ability to show an ad on a big screen, figure out if mobile devices from that household visited a store. I mean, those are two things that have been very difficult for TV advertising to do in the past, and has been one of the real attractants to really the performance marketers who've been coming over to the CTV world.
Yeah, for sure. So talk to me a little bit about the performance side of it as it relates to the reporting of it. What are some of the key metrics that you're surfacing for your clients through your reporting? What are some of the key things that they're asking for in terms of the analytics? Is it store visits? Is it purchases? Is it time on page, coming back and viewing things?
Yeah, I mean, so from the very high level, number one, it's just where were my ads shown on what in the programmatic world where we can give network level today. In some cases we'll see program level maybe in the future, but what are the devices my ads are being shown on, and on what kind of content, and they can tune that depending on can select what devices and what networks they want to show. So a very high level, that the next sort of level down in specificity is video completion rate. So people care about that. Maybe that's a holdover more from digital video, but they still care about video completion rate. Usually in CTV, programmatic CTV is at 90% plus, in the mid 90s usually, so it's usually quite high. But they want to make sure people are actually watching their ads. And then you go beyond that. I kind of think of VCR as kind of like the CTR of that's sort of back to that level. And then beyond that, I mean, the two real things that we're seeing is different types of advertisers. Some e-commerce, and they're trying to drive some kind of action online, whether that's a purchase or signing up for a car, some information, a newsletter. I'd say test drives, but they're not doing so many test drives these days. Maybe that's going to be a post-COVID thing again. So anyway, so just CTV to online conversion. And then we have a whole bunch of advertisers also who increasingly are back, took a lull a little bit during the lockdowns, but looking to drive foot traffic to their stores. And so CTV ad to a lift in foot traffic. How much did users from those households that saw the ad visit a store relative to households that didn't see the ad? So foot traffic lift are probably the biggest ones. And then beyond that, there's a host of reporting. We do ZIP+4 level reporting, which you can tie demographics back into. So there's a host of, what ZIP+4s are converting, and what is that telling me around, what's that telling me around
lose you there?
Who's responding?
Yeah, I think that's where the challenge, Kevin, comes from is Frost just described a couple different scenarios. And as it probably got a little bit easier here in COVID times because more people couldn't go to the store. So you had more people doing things online, more indicators. As people now start to get back, to doing test drives and auto, sometimes it's not as important to have a completion of a video. They know, someone gets 25%, 50%, it hits a KBA for them. That's part of their customer journey to get someone to go and schedule a test drive. Where again, you get to CPG, they're bringing in that offline data. They want to blend that in together, and they actually do want to see that foot traffic, the actual purchase in the store, and having a platform that can blend that data together for you and show you what's happening. That was one of the biggest challenges in the past of trying to build a good media mix model and actually see about offline sales and online sales. With online sales now being more prevalent with COVID, even, like you can see what people are putting in their basket to buy from Amazon. It's the amount of data coming in and the amount of analysis and really understanding the customer and how to speak to the customer is just, I thought it was exciting back a few years ago. It's just going to get better now with the ML and the AI coming into that hopefully is delivering a really good experience to the customers based on their purchase habits.
And we're seeing video just prevalent everywhere. It's not just on TV. It's not just on your devices. It's not just through CTV, right? If you scroll through your Facebook profile, right, every second or third post is a video post, right? Same on, Instagram is all about video, and all of these different platforms, even LinkedIn now is running video stuff through their platform. Everybody's really embracing it across the board. So being able to take all those video assets or one video asset and distribute it across all different networks, and then bring all that data back. That's casting a wide net, and pulling all that data back is really critical for seeing what's working, what's not working, and really where to double down, right?
It makes you wonder if they're going to, pretty soon we'll see commercials in Zoom during the webinar.
There's some space. I can see there's some.
Yeah, right in the gray space there.
Let's hope they're the 5-second commercials and not the longer ones.
Or we're going to have to step up our content and, make it.
Exactly.
One way or the other. We have a great question that came in that I think ties in perfectly here, and it's video trending in app. So when you're working with either apps on TV or apps in other places, let me read it. It says, how do you work with native apps in terms of multi-level targeting for clients, if at all? Frost, maybe you can talk about that. Do you guys do Samsung in-app stuff with the TVs or anything like that?
Okay, well, I was thinking about what the definition of native apps were. So are you thinking of those? I guess we can't get back to the questioner.
I would view it as in smart TVs, they have the whole list of apps in smart TVs, and you can do advertising directly through there on the TVs. That's how I would interpret it.
Right. So in those cases, there's ad inventory, and yeah, we see Samsung. People who have app stores and their own channels, like a Samsung or Roku and whomever, they will sell some of those ad spots directly to their customers, and they'll make some of them available programmatically as well. So yeah, we absolutely see that as part of the supply for CTV ad placements. And so the other part of the question was multi-level targeting. I'm not sure. I don't know how to interpret that one exactly either. But
are they talking? Because I remember working with REI way back when, where they, as people took steps through the customer journey, were able to then deliver the ad. I remember we got it to work, but it was I'm talking 2014, so the old days. But I think that's gotten a lot easier. But the big piece, again, is protecting privacy and things like that. So having, that data warehouse where the DMP, where you're able to store that, then you can start to do multi-levels advertising as someone goes through, like go back to auto. They have their 6, 7, 8 steps in the KBA that leads to, they know, some statistician has said the probability of, test drive. And so you can start to target that, and that's normally will be done through a DMP that's got that intermediary that's got that first party data. They're able to blend it together, and again, they'll use deterministic and probabilistic modeling to do that. But I've seen some of it, but I can't say I've seen a really good case study. But I also haven't been looking, so there could be some good case studies out there on that.
Thanks so much, guys, for answering that and for covering it. There's so many different avenues you can target with video. I think that addressable audience was really kind of the starting point for the conversation, right? You guys have given us so many different layers to think about and start digesting as it comes to video. So I really thank everybody for coming. Everybody who's listening in, thank you for being here. If you're watching this on recording, thank you for coming and listening to it on the recording as well. There are a couple little housekeeping things before we wrap up here today. Everybody's going to get an email from us at the end, and it'll have the recording of the video if you wanted to go back and share it with somebody or listen to it again. We'd love that. If you have questions, we have the follow-up here for everybody. You can follow Frost. You can follow Daryl on LinkedIn. They're both very active in both of those places. There are LinkedIn things here. It'll also be in the email you get. Simplify has also provided us a very nice white paper, kind of case study that will be going out to everybody as well. So do look for that in your email inbox, and you can go through that. And the last little piece is we do this once a month, and our next one is coming up on October 13th. We're going to be talking about native content and going through native content, talking about how to get personal with your clients and how to personalize that message from your clients to the consumers and really soften that touch. So if you're around, we'd love to see you guys there as well.
And Kevin, I want to throw in one last thing. We actually are also, along with the Addressable TV, we have a build versus buy case study that ebook, very simple read, but it's got a lot of stats to help folks think about, how they want to go about blending data and building their stack. So I forgot to mention that was a last minute add-on, but it's a really good read. It's a quick read and definitely beneficial, good takeaway.
And we have, great, perfect. It looks like everybody has enjoyed it. Thank you guys again so much. Frost, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you,
Daryl. And we'll see you out in the waves.
All right, thanks.
Talk to you guys later. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.